Eyes of the Dawn, The Promise That Day. Part 1, The Silent Winter of Gyeongsang. In the heart of Gyeongsang's bitter winter, a silence hung heavier than snow. It was a season where people forgot how to laugh, and hearts beat quietly beneath layers of fear. Amidst this frozen city, a young man named Dongjin walked with quiet footsteps, eyes low but burning with an unspoken fire. His world had crumbled overnight. The news of his father's disappearance during a secret investigation had reached him like a ghostly whisper. With nowhere to go and no one to turn to, Dongjin clung to purpose to uncover the truth. On the other side of town, a girl named Jungah lived under the weight of expectations. The daughter of a respected military officer, she carried pride in her posture and sadness in her silence. Their lives would have never crossed had it not been for that single, snow-covered evening. A moment in time, where two pairs of eyes met under the streetlight's glow. And in that silence, something awoke. Not love, not yet, but perhaps fate. Part 2, A glimpse of warmth in the cold. The days grew colder, but their thoughts grew warmer. Dongjin found himself returning to the same corner of Gyeongsang, as if the snow carried traces of her footsteps. Jungah, the girl with eyes that remembered everything. She wasn't just a girl of noble blood. She was watching the world crumble, just like him. They spoke little, but when they did, every word felt like something they'd been waiting to hear. At a makeshift clinic hidden behind frost-covered windows, Dongjin volunteered. Not for glory, not even for answers, just to feel useful in a world that no longer made sense. And there she was, Jungah, treating the wounded with trembling hands but a steady heart. In the stillness between gunshots and curfews, their hearts began to write a quiet story. One where love wasn't loud, but desperately needed. They never said the word. Not yet, but in that war-torn city, just seeing each other at the end of the day felt like survival. Part 3, Beneath the Shattered Sky. The sky over Gyeongsang no longer promised peace. Planes groaned above like ghosts, and the streets whispered names of the missing. Dongjin and Jungah walked through it all, side by side. They had no right to be happy. Not in times like these. But in stolen glances and brief smiles, they found moments untouched by war. One night, as lanterns flickered in the wind, Jungah finally spoke of her fears. Of being watched, of becoming a pawn in someone else's war. Dongjin didn't have the answers, but he had his voice, and he gave it to her softly. I'll be where you are. Not a promise of forever, but a vow for now. And so they lived, not as lovers in peace, but as souls refusing to be forgotten. Their hearts were no longer just their own. They belonged to each other. In silence, in danger. Beneath the Shattered Sky. Part 4, When Hope Was Forbidden. The letters stopped coming. The walls whispered rumors Dongjin had been taken. Jungah stood in front of the train station, coat clutched tight, trying to keep herself from unraveling like the torn flags waving in the wind. She waited. Days turned into weeks. The silence became a second skin. Far from Gyeongsang, Dongjin sat in a prison camp, the cold eating at his bones more than the hunger. He thought of her hands stained with medicine, her laugh, rare but bright, her eyes, always searching the horizon, as if waiting for him. In that bleak place, he scratched her name into a hidden corner of the wooden bunk, not to be remembered by others, but to remember himself. Across the barbed wire of time and war, Jungah whispered to the wind each night, come back. They didn't know if they'd ever meet again. But love, when forbidden, grows roots deeper than fear. Part 5, The Day the Wind Changed. The war did not end all at once. It faded, like smoke after a long fire, leaving ash on every heart it touched. Jungah no longer waited at stations. She had learned to survive with silence in her chest. But the ache never left. One rainy morning, as the city stirred in gray light, she heard a name whispered in the marketplace. A soldier, returned, alive. Her feet moved before her thoughts caught up. Across the street, among the crowd, he stood taller, thinner, but still him. Dongjin. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the war vanished. No guns, no flags, no borders, just two people, who had waited through time and pain, to find each other again. They didn't run to embrace. They simply stood there, the rain falling gently, the wind finally soft, and in that stillness, they began a gaonot as they were. but as who they had become. Part 6: A Promise Beyond Winter. The seasons changed, but they no longer counted days. Dongjin and Jungah didn't speak much of the past. It lived in their quiet, in the pauses between their laughter. They walked together through the ruins of the old city, where cherry blossoms now bloomed where fire once raged. Life had not returned to what it was. It had become something new. They opened a small clinic, nothing grand, just a place where pain could be heard, and healing could begin. Sometimes, Dongjin would look out the window, and still see soldiers marching in memory. Jungah would notice, and place her hand gently on his. No words, just presence. At night, they sat by candlelight, not needing to say "I love you" anymore, because everything they did already whispered it. The world forgot many names, but in a little corner of that world, two people remembered, not the war, but the love that had outlived it. Please subscribe and like notification.